Okay, Steve.
Give me some few seconds.
Hi, here we are down in lower Delaware again, fishing for pre-spawn bass. What's been happening recently is the water temperature's warmed into the upper 50s and bass have been slamming reaction style baits in shallow water. Hopefully that'll enable you to catch a lot of fish on your home waters, but one of the things that you may encounter when you go out this spring is a cold front. We've had water temperatures in the high 50s and air temperatures almost at 70 degrees. This morning we woke up, the temperature is 29 degrees on the way down to the lake. It's dropped the water temperature down to 48 degrees. This morning when we woke up, the air temperature was 29 degrees. That's pushed the water temperature down to 48 degrees from the high 50s. That can send those bass that were in 6 inches to a foot of water smashing spinnerbaits and rattle traps to almost a state of lockjaw. What we're going to do today is talk about a few techniques that will help you catch those bass when cold fronts come through. What I'd like to do first is discuss some of the baits that we're going to be using today, and then we'll get deeper into the techniques that we're going to use to catch them. First, what we're going to do, you got to change your whole mindset when you're fishing for cold front bass. We'll still use a spinnerbait at times in appropriate areas when the sun's up and it may warm some shallow water. But for the most part, you're going to want to slow way down and go to lighter line if possible, spinning rod if you have to. First couple baits we're going to talk about is the Berkeley Gulp, Yamamoto Senko, and your smaller finesse worms. This happens to be a hand-poured worm. What you want to do is go way down smaller in size, 4 and 5 inch. You're going to want to throw those on drop-offs, the drop-offs that are near those spawning areas. You're going to be looking for, depending on your body of water, it's always different depths, but on this particular body of water, it's from the 5 to 8 foot depth range. That's right off of those shallow 2 and 3 foot flats. What happens is those bass are going to pull out of there and suspend or lay on the bottom on those ledges, waiting for the sun to come out and warm up, which we should have happen in the next few days. Basically, all it does is put those fish that were up aggressive, getting ready to spawn, in somewhat of a holding pattern. So they'll back Jason off right to that area. They won't go far. We're not talking about going out to the main lake if you're in a creek. Stay right near that area where the fish were going to spawn. Back off a little bit and slow way down. Now, besides the stick bait, soft plastic stick baits that we showed you, baits you're going to want to use are jerk baits. You want either a suspending model or a bait that has a very slow ascend in the water column. You don't want something that's rising up to the surface as soon as you stop it. Lucky Craft pointers. This happens to be a live pointer, very lifelike in this cold water. Throw that on a spinning rod or real light line on a bait caster. Smithwick Rogue, all-time great bait, has a really good action. The new Strike King Kevin Van Dam Wild Shiner is a really good bait as well. Don't want to quite work it as fast as you normally do with a jerk bait. You want to give it those hard twitches, but you want to concentrate more on those long pauses that you normally do when it's cold water, something associated with wintertime. You almost want to do that nowadays. Now, next we're going to move into crankbaits. This is a Strike Pro, and this is a Rapala DT6. Now, those are the appropriate depths for the lake we're fishing. You might want to go to a DT10 or a DT12, depending on where you're fishing. The key with the crankbaits right now is to choose baits that have a tight wobble. In the summer, a lot of times when we're fishing rivers, you'll see us key on those baits with a real wide wobble with that square bill, and that's hot. That's a great bait to throw when the fish are aggressive. But when that water cools down and the fish aren't as aggressive, you want to make sure you pick a bait that has more of a slender body, more of a flat side, and it has a real tight wiggle, because that's how the bait moves when that water cools down and the fish aren't as aggressive. And then, like I said, you're going to want to still have a spinnerbait rig, because at times, because it is still the spring, you're going to want to pop that Terminator spinnerbait either in a willow, tandem, or still in the Oklahoma, up into those shallow spots where you believe on a north shore, some bass, once the water begins to warm, say midday, you'll see us throw that a little bit more, they'll move up. Another key to all the baits we're throwing, it's always a key, but when you have a cold front, I believe it's even more of a key, and that is Mega Strike. This happens to be crayfish scent. The shad scent works as well. It's got amino acids, which really makes the fish hit the bait. And when they do hit it, they're going to hold on to it, which can be a key, because on cold fronts like this, the bite can be so subtle you may not detect the bite. So they'll hold on to it a little longer, giving you more time to feel the fish, hence getting more fish in the boat. So we're going to go head out and try to put some fish in the boat for you and show you a little bit more specialized techniques with these baits, and see you on the water. Even though it's a cold front like we talked about earlier, you still want to start out the day pretending that there's going to be some aggressive fish. Now, instead of starting out with the spinnerbait, today I'm going to start out with the crankbaits that we talked about. What you want to do when these fish are a little inactive is you want to maximize the time that your bait is in the strike zone. The way I'm going to do that is by looking at my electronics. I see where the ledge is with the cover that I'm targeting, which just happens to be isolated brush with maybe some emerging grass on this ledge. And I'm going to position the boat right on where I believe the fish will be holding on the ledge, and that's right where it really starts to drop off from the shallows. And I'm going to parallel that, keeping my bait right in the strike zone. When the fish are not as aggressive, you want to make sure that bait stays in the strike zone, where normally you can get away with pulling your bait over the ledge, you know, where the bait's only in the strike zone for a few seconds, because the fish is so aggressive it'll come out and chase it. On a day like today, you really want to make sure that bait is in the strike zone as long as possible. Change your whole mindset. Turn the trolling motor speed down. Calm yourself down. Even though you've been catching large fish, if you go running through here with the trolling motor on high, making only a few casts to each piece of cover, you're not going to land the fish that you want. But if you slow down, change your whole mind frame, you can catch these cold front bass. Now, by nature, I'm a power fisherman. So it's a lot of times, especially when I know there's big bass in the prow, it's hard for me to slow down. So what myself and what a lot of anglers will do, will switch to a reel that has a lower gear ratio. That way you can feel like you're fishing fast with your spinnerbait and your rattle trap, but in reality your bait's just crawling along there on the bottom. Some guys I know will even go down to a 3.9 to 1 gear ratio when they're fishing big crankbaits in deep water. Helps you slow down during these cold fronts. Pickerel. Small pickerel down here, lower Delaware. It's not what we're after, but this is a game fish and it's eating the same food that the largemouth are eating. So it's always a good sign if you're catching a game fish, because the largemouth should be in the same areas. Sometimes you have to be realistic. If a major cold front comes through, it depends on what you're after. If you're after fun or big fish, that changes what you're going to do. If I was after big fish, I would still stay at the same lakes that I know hold big fish. But if under tough conditions, if you're after fun, if you're taking your kids out, or somebody that's not as an experienced angler as perhaps you are, target some of those lakes that you know hold a lot of smaller fish, 2-3 pound fish. Ups your odds a little bit.